Welcome to another episode of Art of the Game. So on today's episode, we get to welcome a seasoned expert in the world of rugby league. She's spent over 15 years in the sport across multiple roles, but her transition from brand marketing into a role of digital and content marketing is one we've admired and one we think is worth sharing. She's currently the head of content and creative at Parramatta Eels, and if you've heard us on any of our previous podcasts, you'll hear us reference the Parramatta Eels as being one of the industry leaders, both in rugby league and just sport in general. So we're so excited to have her on board today. She's a long-term friend of ours and colleague, and we're really excited to get her to share her experience around content and digital and how she's been able to navigate corporate red tape, budgetary and resourcing discussions, and just the overall perception and buy-in around content internally. And she's just created an absolute content powerhouse at the Eels. So we're so excited to have the lovely Nicole Chesher on board with us. So welcome, Nick.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for having me on Art of the Game today. I was so excited to receive your message. You're obviously two favourite people of mine within the industry, and I've had the pleasure of working with you both in many capacities of, over many years. At NRL HQ together, and now, you're a very valued, consultant and partner of the Eels as well. So couldn't be happier to be here to have a chat and have a bit of a yarn about content with you both. And excited to join the podcast.
Oh, we love that.
You look nervous.
I am nervous. Guys, I'm usually the one behind the screen. I'm the one, directing people. I've never been on the screen before. So this is quite daunting for me. I'm a content girl in the background. I'm definitely not in front of the camera. So, bear with me.
Oh, bear with us as well, please. Nick, we would love for you to give us a bit of an overview. I obviously touched on it a bit in the intro, but we'd love to get a bit of an overview from you on your career to date and how you've kind of landed here. I know it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but you've obviously found your kind of sweet spot and your passion. But we'd love to know the journey of getting to this point so far.
Yeah, well, thanks for showing my age earlier, Cass, with the 15 years in the industry reference. But I guess that's where the journey started. It started back in 2009 when I first joined the NRL. I was lucky enough to get a role in sport at NRL HQ. After working a few years in the not-for-profit sector, and it was just really a dream come true. Joining the sports industry at sort of such a young age. And I started there in the marketing events team, way back when the NRL was a tiny office with less than 30 people governing the game. When Dave Gallett was steering the ship. So, we were working incredibly hard, but we were like one big family, just, really working for the game that we loved. And I loved those years at NRL HQ. And then obviously we moved across to Rugby League Central, and I spent close to 11 years of my career, at the NRL in various marketing roles. So, marketing campaign manager, advertising manager, marketing communications manager, the list kind of goes on there. But I guess the last few years of my career at NRL was as senior marketing manager, looking after all major campaigns sort of related to the premiership. And then I was able to launch an internal agency at the NRL back in 2019, which I was really proud of. But unfortunately, as you both know, COVID hit NRL HQ pretty hard, and I was one of the people that obviously was stood down from my role during that period. So during that time, I was really lucky to pick up some great, amazing work with an amazing agency, Total Sport and Entertainment, and worked across a few of their sports products, and also had the joy of having a blast and having so much fun joining Lad Bible Australia for about a 6-month period, helping them launch Sport Bible. So, it was a great transition out of rugby league, but, my heart was not really in it. I always really wanted to get back into lead land, so to speak. And then, the Eels opportunity came up, and this is my 3rd season now, and happily here. It's probably, you don't know your dream job until you land it. And, I couldn't be happier. I keep saying to everyone, I do my job for free here as the head of creative and content. So it's been quite the journey, but I probably rambled a bit there, but, very fortunate to be in sport. And I guess I'm a rugby league lifer in terms of my career to date.
Hey Nick, how hard was that COVID period for you, having worked at the NRL for such a big chunk of your life?
it was incredibly challenging. At first, it was a bit of a novelty, and you're like, okay, I'll work so hard, I'm going to enjoy a little bit of a break. And to be fair, after that, I had a bit of an identity crisis. My identity was really largely linked to the, 11 years I'd spent at head office, my role within the business, my work around the game. And I really struggled personally. And I was lucky enough to have a great, network of people within the industry that, were able to pick me up when I was down and offer me some opportunities. And I think that's the importance of maintaining great relationships in sport. You never know what's going to happen next. You never know, like there could be another pandemic, who knows? But it's been really great when things like that happen. I was thrown a few lifelines and had some great opportunities to pick me up in between. But yeah, it's definitely very, very challenging, particularly because I guess some of us were stood down indefinitely. There wasn't a lot of communication. The world was obviously in turmoil as well. So it's a really hard time to navigate when you've lost such a big part of yourself, which is, your career.
I think burning bridges is something that comes up a lot. Pretty much everyone we speak to in the sporting industry mentions that they've been able to gain, further career progression or jobs in sport by not burning bridges. And it is such a big industry, but it's such, and I think one of our other guests mentioned it once, but it's such a big industry, but such a small community. And it seriously is exactly that when you say, your network was able to pull you up and bring you back to life. But if you had, been entitled in your previous role for any particular period of that, these opportunities might not have presented themselves, because there are people that, remember the way that you make them feel in the workplace. And if you're burning those bridges, then you're going to have a pretty tough road, I think. But definitely good to hear the success stories of those relationships.
Yeah, you get the nail on the head there, Cass. I think, like you said, the sports industry is so big, but the community is so small. You think about just our core NRL alumni group, we've got a group chat, as and there's all of us in every sport at the moment. You've got, AFL, FFA, Clubland, you've got sports publishers, everybody is connected. And funnily enough, through those threads, we're all working together, connecting our companies, collaborating from a professional point of view, which is amazing to see. And I think, ensuring that you maintain those relationships with people you meet within the industry, people you've worked with previously, and no matter how a particular relationship works out or business venture works out, never burning a bridge, because you never know when you're going to need that person's support or, their company's expertise. And sometimes it was just great to connect and learn from one another across, throughout the journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously touch on, career progression. Most people would think that a career progression in sport goes from like being at a team level into a league level into a board level, following the progression of what you think the hierarchy is within sport. I'd love to get your take and your thoughts on how the transition's been from being in the league and being at the governing body for such a big period of time and moving into like one club.
Yeah,
obviously you've done such a great job at it, but I'd love to hear your experience transitioning from probably in reverse of what most people would think a career progression would be, but it's definitely not that. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, you know me well, Cass. I'm not one to do things traditionally, so I like that I've done it in reverse, so to speak. But I couldn't be happier, honestly, with how things turned out. League versus team. I must say I truly did love my NRL career. I wouldn't have stayed there for 11 years if I didn't. Some people used to take that as complacency, like, oh, she's complacent in a job, but it wasn't. I just really, really loved the game, the people I worked with, and was able to progress my role there every couple of years. So for me, it was never about being comfortable. It was just, I just genuinely loved it. And I thought I worked in sport. Like, I really did. I was so proud. I told everyone I work at the NRL, I work at sport. And I thought that was, it was a really great feeling at the time. But it wasn't until I left the league, had some time out of it and then joined Clubland, that I truly now appreciate what working for a team and working for sport is all about. When you're at a club, you really ride the highs and the lows with the team, not just because it affects, your KPIs, on-field performance or things happening around the club does directly affect what you're trying to achieve in your role. But that's not really why you ride the highs and the lows. those in the lies. You ride them because you're so genuinely invested in the club and what the club's, vision is and what you're all striving for on and off the field. So you're just so passionate about that success, and it really affects you on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I guess that whole feeling that you're all in it together, I guess, to put it quite, matter of fact, it really feels like working at the Eels is when I joined the NRL with that team of less than 30 in head office back in 2019. We're just really all a family, coming off the bench for one of each other for a game in a club that we're, genuinely passionate about. So it's been a bit of a shift in that regard. And then I guess just from a work process point of view, resource and budget, but there's no real hierarchy here at the club. So whilst I might be working with less money and say less resources, if I have a great idea or I have an idea I want to pitch in, I can just go with my idea and show how it's based on insights, pitch that to the business, and they have a really great let's try it mentality. I think when you're at the league level, if you had an idea, it would be constantly kind of stuck in paperwork. You'd have to write a case study, pitch it into 3 different people. The strategy team would have to assess its viability. And the
answer would always be no. After all that, no.
Yeah, you go around the table a number of times, and here at club level, we don't have that hierarchy, or those layers of approval. It's a really supportive kind of let's try something new, let's innovate, let's shift the dial kind of mentalities.
I feel like you've been a pretty big driving force behind that being a change though within that club. I'm not sure if it's replicated across clubland everywhere. We definitely see kind of, the best and the worst of what you're explaining. But I think your role, transitioning over from, traditional marketing into the digital and content space, you can see the shift if you're looking at the accounts. You can see the impact that you've had as a manager and as someone who's, fueling the creative process inside that club. How takes on the journey? Obviously, you've only 12 months into the role, or potentially just a little bit over. But how have you kind of changed the perception of content inside that business to ensure that the output that we're all seeing as fans of the game and league fans, how like it's actually really, really resonating? It's really apparent to everyone that there's been a big shift in there. So how have you approached that journey, and how have you brought the board and kind of the decision makers on board with your approach to content?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of twofold for me. Lucky, I came into the Eels as a senior marketing manager and spent 2 seasons here, working, sort of leading the marketing function with, I was working for my friend and former NRL colleague, Kate Chapman. We're able to make such a positive impact in a short period of time. The Eels was the brand that was quite heavily stuck in the 80s success era, with how they presented themselves internally and externally. And so we were able to come in and really sort of shake up that from a brand point of view, and get people on board with our vision really early on. So we were able to use our marketing backgrounds to make a huge impact on, say, look and feel, game day entertainment, how we position membership in market. We're able to make such a huge shift really quickly, which kind of, I guess, built some trust and rapport within the business. And then, obviously the role came up for me to, take an opportunity in content and creative, which is really been, I'm an absolute passionate storyteller. I'm so passionate about innovation through content, and it was really my next step in my career and where I always wanted to go. So when that opportunity opened up for us, opened up for me here at the Eels in sort of August last year, I jumped at that opportunity, and it was great to already have the trust and rapport of the business. But then, I guess kind of taking a shift into content, can be quite tricky. It's really hard to explain to a wider organization that has done things differently before that content's now king, right? So, and it's something that my CCO and I worked really quite closely on, and we talk about all the time. So we say that there's 10,080 minutes in a week, but we only play football for those 80 minutes. How are we engaging and entertaining our fan base, our 900,000 fans, for the other 10,000 minutes a week? And the only way that we can really do that and can connect to people one-to-one through our own channels is through content. So once we kind of, we talk about that all the time, and once that idea really took off internally, we were able to sell that into the exec, get buy-in to the strategy and then really unlock some resource and funding to bring that to life. I think the content team can only, it's important to have a strong leader and a great strategy, but without very talented creatives and resource within a team, you're going to get, you're going to be stuck still. So, the board coming on across on the idea of there's 10,000 minutes, we've still got to entertain our fans, was able to help me unlock that resource and that talent within the team to fill the needs of our fan base.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you raised, Nick. Having worked at the NRL and obviously in Clubland as well, you guys are quite well resourced from a content and creative point of view in comparison to a lot of other clubs. Can you talk us through the structure and how that sort of works from a headcount point of view and roles?
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely can appreciate that I am very fortunate in a resource point of view in comparison to some other clubs. And but yeah, how long's a piece of string? I think it's, the more resource you have, the more you can create, the more you can service your business creatively, and the more content you can make to engage and entertain your fans. And we're the content and creative team, so we're our in-house creative services. We also provide creative services to some of our sponsors and partners. Obviously we manage the creation of all of our content for our own channels as well. So there's myself as sort of the head and lead of the department. And then I have two social producers within the team. So I have the very talented Louis Bokos and Jai Campbell, both previously NRL fame as well. And Louis is primarily looking after our main channels and match day coverage, and Jai's with a heavy focus on junior reps and NRLW, and manages sort of our TikTok creation as well, which has been a huge area for growth for us this season. We then have two full-time graphic designers. One is our design lead, who is more in charge of our creative services division and sort of corporate design, brand guidelines, but is also very talented in the social execution space. And we have Jane Mortimer, our multimedia designer, who looks after our amazing graphics across social, but also thinks of fun and innovative ways to bring content to life through other, she often comes up with TikTok ideas or cool executions for Instagram as well. So we've got sort of two producers, two full-time designers. I have one full-time videographer, Bradley DeLeon, who joined us. He was previously a freelancer in the music industry and just makes amazing video content. So he's full-time with us, and we've been lucky enough to retain a video producer, Joel Karma, with us on 2.5 days a week, as well as game days as well. And then I have a part-time producer helping assist on the podcast and other projects. So yeah, I have a team of 7, which is very large for an NRL club. But yeah, it's been able to open the door for many new opportunities. At the moment, we've been creating some of our partner campaigns in-house. And so, yeah, being able to do more of that could potentially open up the door to unlocking some revenue by, my vision would be eventually modelling that original NRL model I put together where we create an in-house creative agency. And yeah, I guess, we can use the Eels brand as a way to solve, partners' marketing issues or brand issues and bringing that in-house and making a profit from that. We can be fast and nimble with access to our players as opposed to people spending the big bucks with major agencies. We're a much more affordable solution. So hopefully along the track, I'm able to resource the team even more and offer that as a service to our partners.
How do you balance then a fully resourced team, or what you would consider a fully resourced team? Because obviously, as you said, is how long is a piece of string, but that's obviously got a cost associated with it. How do you balance that and then still being able to validate why you use external agents. Obviously, we work with you work with a couple of other agencies as well. So how are you kind of swaying that conversation internally and being able to say, look, we've got these people internally, but we still have a need for freelance output? How are you balancing that?
Yeah, I think it's, it's a case by case conversation that I have directly with our CCO or CEO based on pulling in external resources. I think, the best thing about our team is we don't pretend to know what we don't know. We're really honest about what our skills and capabilities are and where we're lacking that expertise. I was thrown in the deep end in this role in the busiest time of year in final series, and I really needed support just to bring everything together and sort of you get through the next few weeks. So, when I went to my CEO with that, they were fully supportive, and I was able to bring, I guess, yourselves on board to really help me muddy through those first few weeks in the job. There's often particular productions or stories I would like to bring to life that sit outside the skill set within our current team. Maybe it's just from an equipment point of view. It might be from a resource point of view because we're too busy with the BAU requirements of weekly content within a football team. You have to remember that there's weekly media, there's coaches media, there's, 3 to 4 training sessions a week. There's often 2 or 3 club events that you're expected to cover. That was just with the men's team alone. And now with the introduction of the women's team coming in with weekly training as well, the resource is spread quite thin. So if I've, uncovered an amazing story, or we've had a great debutante, or there's a player milestone coming up, my team might be too busy allocated to really executing well on the BAU, and that makes it a compelling story for me to say, we can't miss out on this moment. This is going to be a credible piece of content that's going to bring in a new audience. So it's going to entertain our current fans. It's what our members have been asking for. It's going to cost X, Y, Z for me to execute that. And it's not always been a yes. It's a case-by-case sort of scenario, but I am lucky enough to have, a bit of a budget allocated to freelance based on the, the requirements or workload at any one time.
What's the secret? Because I know a lot of other clubs are probably asking, how do you have 7 staff internally and budget to use externally as well?
I'm a good negotiator. No, I think it is just really the shift in the perception on what content is and what content can do to engage your audiences. So, it's no longer seen as just an add-on to media, or it's no longer seen as just we've put up a news post. It's really seen as a core function of our business. And that it requires that level of investment to have that level of success. I think, we made some decisions around resource really early on when I was in the role. We saw a drastic sort of impact straight away, and within a few weeks we were nominated for Australian Institute of Sport Award for best coverage of social, best coverage of a club or organisation through our own channels and social media. So in a really short period of time, the club was able to see, wow, okay, this is working. This is getting us some industry recognition. Things are on the right track. We've seen the quality improve, the engagement numbers go up, the sentiment shift. And that was just coming together with a group of talented people, setting a strategy and really everyone, living and breathing that on a daily basis.
And how much of the content planning are you kind of doing in advance and being able to be, structured and prepared budget and resource wise around that? And how much is happening on a weekly basis? Like obviously, you've got themed rounds and planning, for finals, if you're a finals team, hopefully, those kinds of things. So how much of your work, I remember when we would talk at in NRL landscape, we try and plan like 80% of the season and leave 20% for that ad hoc kind of stuff. So you weren't always on this like hamster wheel of trying to figure out new content ideas. So how much of yours is planned like that, and then how much creative flexibility are you just kind of going to the team? You know what you're doing. You're on board with it. I'm going to go and deal with other bits and pieces, as opposed to being super hands on.
Yeah, I think, the reality of a club is we're all super hands-on. But from a planning point of view, I've been really lucky to bring my marketing background across into the content role. So, for years of managing go-to-market strategies across 50 plus campaigns in different markets, per year was really able to apply that to, how we position and plan our content calendar and our content for the year. And so it actually made it quite an easy transition once we had the structures and things like that in place. It was able to look at the season really early on, map out your draw, map out cultural moments in the calendar, Father's Day, Mother's Day, different holidays, events, map out player birthdays, map out player milestones. You can easily dig down to a quite granular level and have a really good content base plan set. It's then, digging into themed rounds is our huge opportunity. We've gone really large in our themed rounds this year. So I think we created, 23 pieces of content for Indigenous round. We're deep into planning for Women in League. We had, we went over and above what we've ever done before across Anzac, multicultural round, what we did in the Pacifica space. We were able to really shift a focus into those themed rounds to lean quite heavily into those. And we had those ideas and those stories mapped out pre-season. So they were something that were already planned. So that base calendar is really there. And then it's week to week, letting the team do what they do best and be creative. There might be some epic moment in game from the weekend. There might be a cool meme that's, trending. There might be something that's popped up on TikTok that we want to jump on board with. And, they are the masterminds within the team. They are the talent. My job is to, endorse that, obviously get the company on board. My job is to add a layer of risk management to some of those creative ideas that come through. As ultimately, I'm responsible for managing sentiment across our channels, and not everything you do is going to go well, particularly with a very passionate audience and fan base. But my job is to try and mitigate that risk as much as possible. But so we have the base plan. In summary, base plan is really set for the season, heavily leaning into sort of themed rounds and key moments with our players and their milestones, and then everything after that is sort of 2 weeks in advance based on sort of what's going in the market and what's trending in the industry and what happens on game day.
How much does a result or a string of results impact, the content you're putting out and the sentiment with your audience? Because, there's a lot of teams that have struggled for years. There's teams that obviously sit on top for quite a while. Then they might have the best social team, but if they're not going well on the field, it kind of sucks for them because they aren't able to leverage those wins and that emotion of celebrating.
Yeah, it is a very difficult one to navigate. It's it's something that we were kind of thrown in the deep end with the first few rounds of this season. I think we sort of came off a grand final performance into a few losses quite early on, and as I said, we have a wonderful, amazing fan base, and they're so passionate. But when things aren't going that well, the sentiment on social is quite becomes quite negative. So. We're pretty rigorous in how we sort of look to control sentiment. So I create a sentiment strategy each week that's circulated to the team each week based on what is going on in the landscape, what the current sentiment is on what we've been recently posting on social and taking in on field performance. So that sentiment strategy will say things like, please don't feature these players if we know that maybe they're involved in a contentious decision on the weekend. They might be at risk to receive some negative commentary, and I want to protect the player from that as well. So I will, select players to feature or not heavily feature, which players should hero in photos or not hero in photos, what our tone should be from a caption point of view. So I'll stir back as a few losses. Am I going to put up a post with the teams laughing and smiling and mucking around? No, because you're opening yourself up to that. The boys should be out training. Why are they doing this? Instead, it would be a gallery or a post of the boys really hard at work, leaving it all in the field at training, and the caption would reflect that. So that's something that we're navigating week to week and setting a strategy for. And we have a weekly game day sentiment deck as well based on what's happening. We actually go into game day, with all scenarios based on, what happens in the game as to how we approach our captions on the night.
How are you managing that process or measuring, the sentiment? Is it just gut feel? Are you using a specific tool? How does that sort of all work?
Yeah, at the moment we've actually come off using a specific tool given the current updates to Meta and what's to come. We're paying a lot of our budget in a social media scheduling tool, which then Meta is now offering. So although we can't manage or navigate monitor sentiment through Meta at the moment, for us it was just a better business decision to move off the scheduling tool, considering we could do that through Meta and use that money for, say, freelancers or other areas. It's something that we'll look at for the 24 season based on where Meta gets to. But at the moment, the monitoring of sentiment is really a manual process, and it's really done by myself and sort of 2 other team members just to understand and how things are being received and where sentiment's at and what tone we should be going with our next post or piece of content.
Yeah, I think having worked in social at the NRL, I don't think there's anyone more
In tune.
more in tune and across the public sentiment or the fan sentiment than the social team. They're living and breathing these comments every day. So paying for a tool, yes, to some extent it can help, but I think that gut feel of constantly seeing comments across multiple channels is where that decision comes from.
But the tool needs your input to fuel the AI that's fueling the results of the sentiment. So if you're not actually inputting anything into that, you're not getting anything out of it. So yeah, we found that those tools went to waste most of the time because you can get a pretty good feel from the team who are on the channels all day, every day, about what's happening, and it's not rocket science, but to be able to manage it,
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't reading and consuming the contents and comments and trying to navigate sentiment anyway. So I'm already in there. I'm already reading it. You 15 years experience in the industry, what's good and what's bad. And I often feel that there's tools out there that obviously promise you the world as well. But then it brings in Australian colloquialisms, and how do you navigate that from a sentiment tracking point of view? I mean, calling someone a sick something or other on a social post is actually positive, but your sentiment tool is going to pick that up as negative. Or so there's all of those nuances that I find
a sick something or
That's
other.
very TC.
It's so true though.
Yeah, we had the same issue. It was like they would automatically go into the negative bucket, and you're like, no, that's actually, yes, the word potentially is negative in a different context, but they're using it in a positive tone. So we did have to do it, you have to basically manually change that anyway. But if you're just spending the time consuming the content, as you said, responding, engaging with your fans, which is more beneficial to you as a brand, you don't need those tools. I don't think from a sentiment point of view. I don't know one that's actually doing a really good job of that.
I don't think anyone's ever nailed it because I don't think it's possible, to be honest.
Chat GBT, the 3 of us can go into business and come up with something.
A social sentiment tool. We'll write it down. Hey, Nick, we want to just quickly delve into women's sport. I know you mentioned it before with the team structure, and you've obviously got the boys set up separately to manage, the men's game and women's game. But women's sport's obviously something that's growing a lot across every sport, but particularly in league as well. And we're noticing a lot of teams aren't resourcing separately for the women's game. So it's very much just falling under the same banner as the men's. We know women's sport and men's sport should be treated quite differently. The audience is different. The tone should be different. The perception of the sport is different. So how are you navigating that internally other than just a particular resource? How is it kind of coming to fruition across all facets of the game? So your branding, your design, how it looks and feels, how you approach the players, and how are you balancing all that?
Yeah, I think, I'm very fortunate to be part of a club. We had sort of last minute notice when we were, we're going to be accepted to have an NRLW team. And from that very moment that happened as a club, we really wanted to ensure that we had dedicated resource for NRLW across the board. So, as soon as that happened, we went and hired the amazing Lauren Pritchard to come on board to run, social and media for women's. We engaged, people across the board to make sure we had a really robust women's program. Unfortunately, then COVID happened, and we were delayed and set back quite a while in that 2021 period. But then, after that, we've obviously had 2 seasons sort of last year, and for us, it was really, really important, particularly from a content point of view, to make sure that we were able to showcase the women to our audience, build their profiles, create them a following, build their brand. And we sat around a table, sort of had a bit of a robust debate as to whether we separate women's channels or whether we keep them together under the one banner. And for us, the opportunity to separate was just too great. We could always collaborate. So it's not a men's or a women's. We have a main and an NRLW, and we often, you'll see most of our content is collaborated across both anyway. But it was just a smart decision from our point of view to separate that. It just created greater commercial opportunities. We can sell sponsorships directly to women that might suit the audience on our NRLW socials, but not necessarily on our main page. And we've seen great success in that. We're over 25,000 followers. And now with a even more dedicated resource in that, we've seen some great growth just in the last month or two since training started back up again. So yeah, I think it was just a business philosophy from the get-go when the team was, I guess, announced, and we've really just built on that internally. So now we have dedicated program managers. We've got Kate Parkinson in the business full time. We've got Kate Mullally in the business full time. We've got amazing dedicated resource to make sure that our women's program is a success.
I assume that resonates in the players as well, like the feeling that they have as being part of that club, knowing that they're not just kind of tacked on the back and playing second fiddle to men's training and men's programs as well. They probably feel a whole lot more like they're just as much part of this club and the foundation of the club as the men's team is. So in terms of like recruitment and getting players into the club, that culture seems like something that's going to be translated into success, hopefully for you guys on the field as well.
Yeah, I really hope so. And I think, having Jai and Brad out at every training session, getting to know the team, they're accepted into the team pre-season camp, having them there every day, it can really show the women that we're invested in this space. We're, on our channels, we've got multiple pieces of content going up daily, showcasing the women as amazing athletes. We're about to dig into storytelling. We did an amazing NRLW content shoot recently. We're engaged some amazing external photographers to really showcase off these wonderful athletes. And yeah, we're just excited to help bring their brands and the Parramatta Eels NRLW brand to life.
I think even for your own staff, not being stretched across both men's, women's, juniors, and actually allowing their, thinking about their mental health, and because in sport, especially in social, you're on 24/7. So I think it's very unfair for those that don't have the resource and have to stretch themselves across multiple areas of the business. So I think you guys are, definitely leading the way in that space.
Yeah, I think, you're always going to be stretched in sport. Like we said, how long's a piece of string? So, there's always more you could be doing. There's always more you want to be doing. But it is really great to be able to have, staff like Jai dedicated to thinking about the women's channel and how we grow the women's channel, because, it's important from a business point of view.
Nick, I think your experience in the industry, I'll mention again, you've been in it for 15 years, but you obviously started really young. That's probably why. There would obviously be some, harsh truths that you've come across in terms of working in sport. We all work in sport originally because we're passionate about it. We love, the games and the kind of leagues and teams that we're working for. But it is a job at the end of the day. So what are some harsh truths for those who are wanting to get into the world of sport? What do they need to know about working in sport and the landscape of sport? You've obviously got experience from a league and from a team, agency side, all of that. You've got the whole shebang. But I'd just love to get your take on that as a concept. What should they be expecting and what's on the inside of working in sport?
Yeah, I think, Cass and Reese, I'm sure most of your guests will say the same thing. But it's got to be the hardest truth of working in sport has got to be the hours, particularly in social and content. So it's an around-the-clock job, and if anyone tells you otherwise in an interview, they're lying to you. Do you know what I mean? It is 100%. You're on the clock all the time. I do try and remind ourselves sometimes that we're not saving lives and, we can take a break. But the reality is, your weekday commitments, you're covering the team schedule, you're active when the team is active to be able to capture content. We have to be at training because that's when meeting happens, or we can access the players afterwards. Then you're covering club events. So we've got this week, we've got sponsors brunches, we've got partner shoots, we've got, all these other activities happening around the club that we need to be at to capture content for as well. You're then shooting marketing campaigns on different days. And then the reality is you have games on the weekend. So you might, be lucky enough to, have a long weekend Monday game and you think, oh, great, that means I finally get a weekend. But the reality is then you're training you're training on the Saturday and the Sunday. So and then obviously covering from social means you're constantly, online, reviewing sentiment, reading articles, looking for inspiration, assessing the industry.
You're really selling it, Nick. Why do we do this again? I'm confused.
I'll stand by the fact that I still do my job for free. Like, it is a lot and definitely married to my job. But, I wake up every morning and I do look forward to coming to work. And, a lot of my friends aren't so grateful in their workplaces or their industries, or they're just not working towards something they're passionate about. The hours are long and that is a hard truth, but it feels like I can get in at 9 and go home at 9:15. So it doesn't feel like, it's too much, but it's just the reality is the hours are a lot. And then I think working sport, it's like you're working for a very small business, and sometimes it's like you're working for a startup, and it's a really pull up your sleeves, come off the bench for each other mentality. 1 minute I might be presenting to the board, or pitching something into my CEO, or joining our partnerships team to present something to a major sponsor. And the next minute, I've got blue tack in my pocket and an Allen key in the other, and I'm fixing signage in the stadium. I'm trying to get stuff up on the walls. I'm the head of content and creative, but I still set up the sheds on game day. So it's, no job is too big or too small for anyone in a club environment. And you really just have to, be passionate and love it and be willing to get your hands dirty.
So then what makes it so rewarding? Why have you been in here for 15 years and still rolling up your sleeves and still setting up the sheds? I know you love it, but, what is the most rewarding thing about your job, and why do you just love sport so much?
It's a very good question, Cass. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before, and I don't think I've ever tried to pinpoint it for myself. I think it's just it's a feeling. It's a feeling of camaraderie. It's a feeling of you might be working hard, but the people next to you are working just as hard for the same goal. You all have a similar vision. And at the end of the day, your job is to go and watch a football game with the game that you love, the game that you grew up with, the game that's made a significant impact on your life, and contributing that back to that, and also seeing what the game can do to uplift lives and create memorable moments and impact, impact people is incredibly rewarding to be a part of. And sometimes I'm just at a game day, and I'd been there since 7 a.m. and it's 9:30 at this point, and I turn around and there's a little girl or boy crying because Mitch Moses has handed his boots over, and you're like, they're the moments that keep you in the game, and when you realize what it means to people. And my CCO Andrew McHale, the one that I chat to about the 10,080 minutes. He once did a presentation where he, sort of opened the presentation with a man with the Eels tattoo on his head. And I was like, what is going on? And he said, I want you to never forget that you work for an organization that means so much to someone that they're willing to tattoo the logo to their head. And, that stays with me every day. I'm like, yes, what I do for the Eels and what I can bring to life in content actually means so much to people and can bring joy to their lives. So I've never had to summarize that before, but that's probably why.
Very well said. I love it.
I feel like I want to come work with you now. More so than what I already do. Yeah, that was really well said.
Yeah, it was love at first sight. I think, that small team back at NRL HQ, rolling up our sleeves. I remember we used to sleep in the office, and during origin periods, trying to get stuff done. It really was coming from a place of love, and it's nice to have found that again. So
that camaraderie aspect, we all know Nick loves a wine. What do you do, with the team to get away from that and just relax and, because you've obviously got a good team culture there.
So, we've got a really supportive creative team. You often see them boasting about each other on social media, which I love to see. We do try and take time out together. So we love a bit of holy moly golf up the road, a team lunch. I don't think the team has paid for lunch in a very long time. The local chicken shop does get a bit of a run for its money, and I'm always keeping the team well fed. There's a running joke that I saved up all of our lunches at the end of last year and treated the team to a day out of lunch at Nobu as a celebration of our success. So we go from one extreme to the other and charcoal chickens to Nobu, but we do make time to connect with one each other. But then also we have game days where we're in the trenches together. Away trips always a lot of fun. And I think just being with each other, constantly connected through group chat. We're always in the office, even though we don't have to be. We have flexible working environments, but I actually can't keep the team away, which is really nice. And things like touch footy and that getting amongst it, really helps us stay connected.
Well, you're doing an amazing job over there. It's definitely resonating, as we mentioned before, on the social and digital platforms that we're all seeing. We always reference you guys as industry leaders. So, you're doing a phenomenal job over there. We obviously love you and all the team. We've worked with you all very closely for a long period of time. So, we just love what you're doing. We think you're doing an awesome job. And, we can't wait to be even just a small part of your success going forward. So, we really appreciate you jumping on today, giving your time. I know you're busy. You're off to record your own Eels podcast. So, good luck with that. We'll probably have to get you on again and chat to you about some of the content pieces you guys are whipping up, because you're doing a phenomenal job. But we'll leave it there for today. So thanks so much, Nick, and good luck on the weekend.
Thank you so much. I love you both and love what you do, and we really appreciate your support of us here at the Eels, and look forward to working with you both in the future. I just love being a former colleague, watching you guys shine in what you do at Sport Design Australia. So well done to both of you, and thanks for the chat.
We love you.
You guys are
Thanks, Nick.
See
Bye.
ya. Bye-bye.